Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. In this video, we are going to start picking up the pace a little and really start getting you familiar with some of the additional items professional or institutional traders are looking at. To do that, let's pick up where we left off previously, where we highlighted just how much more information institutions are looking at compared to amateur or retail traders. So if you remember, you're already looking at price, columns 1 and 2 on your retail chart, but that is where the comparison ends. If you also remember, institutions additionally have access to columns 3 and 6, how much supply is available in the market, columns 4 and 5, how many units are being bought or sold of a given instrument, i.e. demand. Now, one thing I'm going to repeatedly ask, and I'm not going to apologize for it because this is intentional, and I was also asked this on a daily basis when I joined the bank I was working for, and I want to give you a proper institutional training experience. So I'm going to do the same to you as the bank did to me and repeatedly ask you, but this time with a different product, just to show that this applies to everything. So last time we spoke about hats. This time, let's pick something else random. For example, let's say you were going to start a shoe business. You decide the price you're going to sell them for, say $100, sounds reasonable, and you display it on the shop window or perhaps on your website. So you have columns 1 and 2, the price you're going to be selling your shoes for. Again, I've replaced the pound-dollar price with the shoe price. It doesn't matter. It's the same thing. You're just buying and selling something for profit after all. Now, let's say it's day one of your new shoe business. But you're doing what retail traders do. You have the price, but you have no idea how many shoes you actually have available to sell, columns 3 or 6, supply, and worse. You have no idea how many people are even buying them, columns 4 or 5, demand. How do you expect your business to perform? I'll give you a moment just to think about it, but I actually want you to write this down on the question sheet you printed off earlier. You'll see the question there. Just like the bank asked me to physically write this down every day when I started working as a junior trader in one word, how do you think your business will perform if you have no idea how many shoes you've actually got available to sell, and worse, you don't actually know how many people are even buying them? Pause the video for a moment and write down your answer. Hopefully the answer you wrote down was instant. You've written down it would be a disaster, a failure, or some words to that effect. Given how obvious it is that you cannot run any business in this way, it really boggles my mind how retail traders trade without even the most basic information about the product they are trading. They are solely relying on one small thing, the price. Something is being sold at and completely ignoring the stuff that really matters, the demand and supply available of the product that they are in the business of, in this case pounds, and somehow they expect to succeed, whilst their competitors, institutions and professional traders are trading with multiple pieces of information. The same thing applies in your shoe business. If you were completely ignoring how many shoes you had to sell, your supply, and worse, how many shoes were even being bought from you, your demand, do you think your competition is just going to sit back and do the same? Obviously not. They're going to be looking at all that data, columns 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, in their shoe business, and ultimately they're going to completely destroy your business. You are going to be shutting down your shop pretty quickly. Can you see? To think it is any different in trading is extremely naive, and it needs to change quickly, or the only one that's going to suffer is you. Now, I am genuinely saying this so bluntly because I don't want you to fail miserably before you've even begun. And look, at the end of the day, it doesn't even matter what I say. Who cares? You can see it for yourself right in front of you. That's why I had you write it down so you can see it for yourself. You're putting yourself at a major disadvantage. And to do that in the trading business is even worse because you're going to see as we go along, you are competing with some of the most ruthless institutions and traders in the world. So handicapping yourself with such a big gaping hole in the information you are using, you can imagine you're not giving yourself the basis upon which to develop a long-term career on. It is only going to end badly for you. Now, I think you get the point. I'm obviously saying all of this only to help you. So let's make it our goal to remove this obvious information gap so you can at least be on a level playing field with your competitors. Otherwise, what is the point? Now, unfortunately, just before we move ahead, I have some bad news, but also some good news. The information gap that you're probably already thinking, this is massive, I'm sorry to say, is actually even wider. I just didn't want to overwhelm you at first or entirely destroy the picture of what you thought trading was. That's why I'm doing this step by step. Again, no need to take my word for it. Let me actually show you so you can see it for yourself. Now, because I was just beginning to introduce you to the extra elements that professional traders or institutions are looking at, if you remember, I laid things out intentionally in a very simple side-by-side straight line format that you see here, not only so we could go in small steps, but also so you could easily compare amateur to professional and really see the differences for yourself. The reality, however, is the information gap is much wider. What I laid out here on the right is actually part of something called a depth of market, or DOM for short. Very simple and straightforward. Let me bring it up using the exact same figures for the pound versus the dollar. Now, the only thing that has changed in terms of layout is, can you see? If you've ever traded as a retail trader, you're probably used to seeing the buy and sell buttons or prices horizontally next to each other, which is why when I first introduced you to the additional information professional traders are looking at, I laid it out the same, horizontally, so it's easy for you to compare. The depth of market, all it does is it flips prices vertically, as you can see here. Can you see? I've labeled them very clearly here. The price columns 1 and 2 have simply become rows 1 and 2 on the depth of market. The bid and the ask, the buy and the sell buttons, instead of horizontal, they're vertical. I cannot stress this enough. Same prices you see on your retail chart, just vertical. Very simple and straightforward. And even if it isn't, once you see it a few times, it will become second nature. And with all due respect, you have no choice but to understand this. If you want to be successful in this business, you need to have at least a basic. By no means am I saying it needs to be extensive, but at least have a basic understanding of this information, because this is what is driving the market. Simple as that. Again, you will see that for yourself as we go along. Now, the reason the prices are shown vertically is because not only do professional or institutional traders have supply and demand data for the current buy and sell price, can you see? They have it for multiple prices above and below them. But this should come as no surprise. Think about it. This is completely normal. Let's have a real world example. In fact, we can even refer back to the earlier shoe business we started. If you remember, you were selling shoes at $100. So let's put that on the depth of market, $100. It's just a price after all, same as $123.94. Now let's say you were unbelievably successful and you sold out 1,000 units at $100. So I'm just going to simply replace this 3 with 1,000 because your customers bought 1,000. Simple. You then put your price up to $105. Pretty normal to put up your prices to take advantage of the demand, right? So let's put $105 as the next price up. No different to pound dollar ticking up in price from $123.94 to $123.95. Now, throughout the week, maybe you're testing different prices in your business just to see what works. Again, very normal. We see Amazon doing this all the time. So for example, you sell another 500 units at $105. So let's put that there. And you raise your price again, this time to $110. So your price has ticked up from 105 to 110. Same thing as if the pound dollar was to tick up from 123.95 to 123.96. Now I literally want you to write down the answer to this question. As your shoe prices were changing, would you keep a record of how many shoes you sold at each price? So in this case, 1,000 units at $100, maybe 500 at $105, maybe some more at $110, say another 500. So let's put 500 there. Just ignore the supply columns for now. They're straightforward, but we'll deal with them later. So my question to you is, you'll find this on your questions PDF, but just write down yes or no. If you were running a business, would you keep a record of how many units have been sold in a format like this or something similar. Doesn't have to be exactly the same, just something similar. Or would you just do what retail or amateur traders are doing, which is have zero accounts of any of the business being done? Hopefully the answer you wrote down is yes. Of course you would keep records of it. How would you make any trading decisions in your shoe business if you had no records? So can you see? You cannot run any business without a ledger, without a record of how many units have been bought and sold at not only one price, but at various prices. This is exactly what the depth of market is. It's simply a ledger or bookkeeping system. Instead of for a product like shoes, it is for a financial market product like the pound. Just like a ledger or bookkeeping system that allows a business to operate and make trading decisions, this allows institutions and professional traders to do exactly the same, but instead of for shoes, for financial market products. Think about it. The pound is just a product to a bank. They are buying and selling it. A shoe is just a product to a business. They are just buying and selling it. Banks and institutions recognize it is suicidal to run their trading business without having a record of this basic information to allow them to make trading decisions and decide if the price is likely to go up or down. You can see it for yourself in front of you, whether you're in the televisions, jackets, hats, shoes as we have on the right, or pound dollar as we have on the left. Can you see? There is no difference. This is the very fundamentals of how not only any business in the world operates, it's exactly how financial markets operate. Every business in the world has a depth of market, even a shoe business. You've seen it for yourself. Can you see? They might not lay it out like this, but their accounting software or record keeping systems are doing exactly this. Amazon sells out of 1,000 units of shoes at $100. The price ticks up to $105. 38 units of pound dollar are sold out. Price does what? Ticks up to $123.94. That is why price moves. Pound dollar, S&P 500, shoes, hats, whatever. It's that simple. Nothing to do with any technical analysis, lines on your chart, zones, tools, artificial intelligence setups, or any of that rubbish. That stuff belongs in the trash can. It's meaningless. I am giving you the black and white evidence right in front of you of what the biggest institutions in the world are doing. And it should come as no surprise to you because this is exactly what any business is doing. Demand, columns 4 and 5. Supply, columns 3 and 6. Transactions happen, price changes, that's it. Demand comes in, price ticks up. Demand goes away, price ticks down. You need to know how much demand and supply is in the market because that is what is driving the price. That is how the whole world operates, has operated for thousands of years and will continue to operate for many thousands of years into the future. Business basics. You've written it down yourself on a piece of paper multiple times now that you wouldn't run any business without this basic information. So if now, after seeing this for yourself, you carry on relying solely on retail methods like these, or even using AI to pick out setups for you, basically all things that are just focusing on just price, 1 and 2, and completely ignoring the rest, can you see? You've only got yourself to blame, no one else, when things don't work out the way you want it to. However, I am certain that all of you recognize you have no trading business, let alone a shoe business, without a full set of information upon which to make decisions. Given that you now recognize that, going forward from this point onwards, do you agree your sole focus, time, energy, and effort, 100% of it, needs to be channeled into really starting to understand how these interactions of buyers and sellers in the financial markets are driving price? That is what every bank, institution, and professional trader in the world is doing. It is exactly what my bank had me focusing on when I joined their training program, and that is what is going to help you build an incredibly long-lasting career. The good news is that is exactly what we are going to be working on together. You're not only going to see exactly the process banks and institutions put their traders through, like me, before letting them on the trading desk. You're actually going to be doing it yourself together with me, which is going to completely change the game for your trading. But for that to happen, it of course requires us to first close this gap and get you really understanding what the very best traders in the world are looking at demand and supply. So let's really up the pace and start doing that. See you in the next video.